Hi everyone, my name is Chien, metric number 261882. Our topic is the ethics of consumer production and marketing. Now I would like to explain the first point, the market and consumer protection. Market approval, which also known as laissez-faire, holds consumers will automatically be protected from injury and other loss by the operation of free and competitive markets. There are two reasons which contribute to the market approval. Firstly, thanks to the consumer sovereignty. It because the product safety features consumer wants and they are willing to pay for it to ensure the product will be produced. In addition, the producer will have to respond to consumer demand for safer product or risk losing customers to others who do. Secondly, government interference only interferes with the working of market and producers' ability to give the consumers what they want to end up forcing costly safety features on consumers that consumers may not really want at the cost. However, there are some criticism with market approach. Firstly, customers commonly only obtain imperfect information. It means they are often do not understand the risk due to deceptive marketing or advertising misinforming consumers about risk or simply not informing them. This will cause them to make irrational choices. Secondly, irrational agency consumers are often irrational in assessing risk. Rational choice involve estimating probability and people are bad for this. People usually have irrational confidence, which means they typically underestimate the chance of damage. For example, the chance of being injured by driving, smoking, and eating high cholesterol diets. In addition, they also have irrational fears, which is overestimate the chance of being injured by tornadoes, suicide bombing, and etc. Thirdly, oligopoly conditions are more the norm than the exception. Even if consumers are wise enough to want safe products, oligopolies may be unresponsive to their wants. Lastly, the limitation for the market approach the producers can be expected to protect people from extreme ignorance and foolishness. This is all from me. Now I would like to pass to my colleagues to continue the presentations.
My name is Wang. My metric number is 261844. I will present the contract view of business duty to consumers. A sales contract exists when a customer buys a product with the firm. The firm freely and knowingly agrees to give the buyer a product with certain characteristics, while the consumer similarly agrees to pay a certain sum of money to the firm for the product. Hence, the contractual relationship exists between the business firm and its customers. The contractual relationship defines the first moral duty to customers. The four main moral duties by a business to its customers are duty to compile, duty of disclosure, duty not to misrepresent, and duty not to coerce. Duty to compile is the most basic duty that a business owes its customers. The business has a duty to provide a product with a level of risk no higher than they have expressly communicated or implicitly claimed to the customer, which the customer has freely and knowingly agreed to assume. The type of implied claim as concerning are reliability, service life, maintainability, and safety. Reliability concerns whether the product will function as expected by consumer, while service life concerns the period a product will function effectively as expected by customer. Besides, maintainability concerns the ease with which the product can be kept in operating condition and repaired. Lastly, safety concerns the degree of risk of a product being used. The second moral duty is duty of disclosure. The seller must disclose exactly the term of the sales contract, the information about the product that will reasonably influence the customer's purchase decision. The information includes the risk, performance characteristics, and cost of operation, product ratings, and applicable standards. The criticism to the duty of disclosure is the provision of product information is a service for which the customer should pay. The reply to these criticisms is if the buyer has to bargain for relevant information, the information will be less readily obtainable and the resulting contract will be less free. That's all from me. Thank you.
My name is Fumeki, metric number 262433. Now I will continue to present about the contract view of business duty to consumers. The third main moral duties by a business is duty not to misrepresent, which means the seller must not present a product in a way that intended to deceive buyer into thinking something about the product that the seller knows is false either through verbal lies or gestures. Misrepresentation may be express or implicit. Example of express misrepresentation is a dryer marked new when it is reconditioned. One example of implicit misrepresentation is the reconditioned dryer is placed unmarked on the floor amidst of several new models. Besides that, misrepresentative practice include fictitious regular price to give impression the item is marked down, higher prices than advertised, or brand name looks alike. The last moral duty by a business is duty not to coerce, which means the seller must not take advantage of the buyer's fear or emotional stress to make buyer enter into an agreement that the buyer would not agree if thinking rationally. The seller is known as exercise undue influence. The examples of undue influence are the unscrupulous funeral director who oversells. Next, I will present about the problems with the contractual theory. The main criticism of contractual theory is it is based on unrealistic assumptions. This theory assumes manufacturers make direct agreements with consumers. In fact, there are usually many levels of middle merchants, such as wholesalers and retailers between the manufacturer and ultimate consumer. In addition, the doctrine of indirect agreements states that manufacturers promote their product through their own advertising campaigns, and these advertisements supply the claim that consumers rely on in their purchase decision. The next problem is the manufacturers can remove their duties to buyers by disclaimers of responsibility. This theory focuses on the fact that a contract has both favorable and unfavorable consequences. The underlying idea of contractual theory is the contract will adequately protect the customer's interests by underwriting claims against the manufacturer for product defects. However, contractual disclaimers can be used to relieve the manufacturer from contractual obligation by expressly disclaiming that the product is reliable, serviceable, and safe. The last problem with contractual theory is assume buyer and seller must meet each other as equal in the sales agreement. In fact, there are inequalities disadvantages the consumer, where the consumer must usually rely on the seller judgment in making their purchase decision. This is because the manufacturer is in a much better position to know the product. Moreover, manufacturer or seller more understand the contract and the buyer generally just accept the terms, often with little more than a cursory glance at the contract. That is all from me. Thank you.
AZIZ. My metric number is 262520. So, next topic is about UK theory. UK theory can be defined as manufacturers have a duty to take special care to ensure that consumers' interests are not harmed by the products that they offer them, which is because the manufacturers are in more advantaged position and consumer must rely on them. So, next is about manufacturers' duties. Manufacturers' duties, there are three manufacturers' duties, which are designing, production, and marketing. In terms of designing, the manufacturer need to minimize the risk when designing the products. So next is the the duty of production, which is the manufacturer need to use strict quality control (QC) to avoid defect on materials and manufacturing. Okay. So, lastly, the duties of manufacturer is to provide a clear information about how to use the products, uh, or the manufacturer also need to warn of all dangers that have in their product. So, uh, the last topic is about problems with the duty. There are some problems which is not limit what producer must spend. Second is not indicate who should pay for product injuries that is unpredictable. And lastly is put manufacturer in paternalistic position. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, I am AMELIA Cheng, matrix number 261480. I would like to present about the social cost view on the duties of manufacturer. This theory is about manufacturer should pay the cost of injuries caused by defects in product even if manufacturer exercised all due care in designing, making and marketing it, and injury could not have been foreseen. This means that a manufacturer has a duty to assume the risk of even those injuries that arise out of defects in the product that no one could reasonably have foreseen or eliminated. Based on utilitarian arguments, external cause of injuries resulting from unavoidable defects are part of the total social cost of producing and using the product. Thus, these costs should be internalized so that there is a more efficient use of society's resources and more fair distribution of costs. The manufacturers will ensure that the product is not overproduced and no wasted resources. Next, there are some criticism on the social cost view. Firstly, it is unjust to manufacturers as this theory violates the basic principle of compensatory justice, that one is obligated to compensate parties for consequences of one's acts only those consequences were foreseeable and preventable. The second criticism is there is a false assumption that this theory can reduce the number of accidents. However, this theory actually encourages consumers' carelessness by relieving them of responsibility for their injuries. Thus, this may lead to an increase in consumer injuries. The third criticism is this theory brings financial burdens to manufacturers and insurance carriers. This is because when there are more consumers successfully sue manufacturers, the heavy losses will be imposed on the insurance companies and make insurance too expensive. This causes the manufacturers to bear the burden of high costs. That's all from me and my group. Thank you.